right. I don't know how you're supposed to introduce royalty here, but we have our God Queen, the voice of Jean Grey and Val Cooper in X-Men 97, Catherine Disher.
Good at this. You're kind of scary when you got everybody to do it again. That is the voice of authority.
Well, I learned from you when you emerged from the bottom of the Jamaican Bay saying, Catherine, I think everyone can say that. Do you think they can say that?
Yeah, you're ready to go. I am Tina.
Give yourselves a round of applause right there.
I made people do it at my table when I signed that. And I say that I won't grade you, but I secretly do in my head.
All right, folks, my name is Paul Flotis Taylor. I am the host of the podcast called Power of X-Men. And I'm just going to ask Catherine a few questions, and then we're going to open it up to all of you. So get those questions ready. But my first question for you, Catherine, and I actually don't know this. Yeah.
I'm much more comfortable. Okay, there we go.
How did you get the role of Jean Grey? How did that originate for you?
Well, I had done animation for a few years, mostly like little kid boyfriend, and so I'd done a bunch of animation. In fact, okay, this is a slight digression. My very first animation gig after 3 years of auditioning for animated series, animated stuff, was one head of a two-headed monster in Beetlejuice, and the other head was done by Ron Rubin, who was the original Morph. And I remember going to the booth and I was terrified, and Ron was in there and he was like a comedian. He did impressions and he's kind of hyperactive. So he was like, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? To the producers. Then he did the 5 impressions in a row and made the sound of a door opening. And I was like, oh my God. And I literally put up my hand and the people on the other side of the booth said, yes, Catherine. And I said, I think I'm in the wrong place. So it took me a long time to feel comfortable, but when I read those X-Men scripts, when they sent them to me to audition, they sent monologues. So, and they sent me, they had me audition for Storm. So at the time I was like, this feels right, but you say, you don't want to say anything, but you go ahead and do it back then. And, but I thought that's clearly not right. And so I don't actually remember auditioning for Jean Grey. I must have, because they're not the kind of people that just give you a part. So I guess I did. But Storm had the most amazing monologue for those initial auditions. And so and then they recast. We must have done the first couple of episodes, re-recorded them. I don't even know how many times. We changed Professor X's. We changed a bunch of characters. It was like, for a while we were all like, felt like we were on the chopping block and none of us knew. I had never read anything like this. These scripts were so well written. They reminded me more of radio plays than they did of animation. And it was like nothing I'd ever read before. And so I really, really wanted to do it. And yeah.
Do you remember when you first saw the design for Jean?
It took a while before we actually saw the designs. And of course, I went out and, once I got the part, I was like leafing through comic books at the comic store and trying to find stuff out. But, that was back in 92. I didn't even have a desktop computer at home until 2004. So it was, you had to really go dig. And I don't think we saw any designs right away because it took them a long, they animate to our voices as opposed to like dubbing where you're actually like anime where you're dubbing in another language. Yeah. So like for instance, when I did Jill Valentine, when I did Nemesis 3 in Resident Evil, I did not see the character. And I just assumed, I didn't know she was in a tube top and a mini skirt for, killing zombies. Until 4 months later, when they came back and did additional dialogue and they showed me the designs, I was like, oh, you're kidding me. So yeah, we don't often get to see the designs. I mean, obviously by the second season, we all knew what was going on, but.
Did Stan Lee or anyone from Marvel come in and give you some direction?
No, he yelled at them on the phone a few times.
Oh, wait, unpack that one.
Well, they would you're in the booth and there's glass in between you. And the other side of the glass, you've got like the voice director, the director of the series, the engineers, the assistants. And so they're like on this tiered seating on the other side of the booth. So you can see them. It's like being in a fishbowl. And there were a few times where Stanley called and they have a mute button in their part of the booth, so you can't hear what's going on, and they just press the mute button. And Larry Houston, who was the original producer director of the original show, he told me that he knew he wanted to do the Phoenix Saga. He knew it would take 9 episodes. And we were only doing 9 or 10 episodes of 97, right? So we did 26 episodes back then. But he said he did it in the 3rd season because he knew that by then Stan Lee would leave him alone. So yeah, nobody wanted Stan Lee to interfere, is the feeling that I got.
How did you go about crafting Gene's voice? Because I think I can speak for everyone here. You are the voice of Gene. Am I right? Like that, you are the definitive voice. You are the voice we hear when we are reading the comic books.
You know, we do not take that lightly. When you hear something when you're a kid and it lives in your head, it's kind of an honor to live in people's heads. So we don't take that lightly. You know, it's funny because Gene was not my real voice. My real voice is, you know, although I've been sick for about a month. So, I mean, I'm not sick anymore, but I have the residual. But my actual voice is a bit deeper and scratchier. And Jean was always I always sort of aimed her up. So it was, you know, Scott, Professor, I like to work with my mind. You know, it was kind of that.
You're so fanboy now, right now.
But it was that kind of, you know, oh, Scott. And Scott would be like, get down, Jean. Yeah. So when people come up to me and they hear me talk and they sort of go, oh, like for instance, why aren't I Gene in 97? And there are people, I'm not online, like I'm a social media phobe, but people have showed me stuff where they say, oh, well, her voice after 30 years. And it's actually not true. It's just, I can do the voice. In fact, okay, this is sort of, so when they came at us for 97, they made us audition for our parts again. You'd think 76 episodes would be enough of an audition, but no. So I had to audition twice for Gene. And the first time they sent it to me, they changed the names in the script. It said like Paul and Tracy, and they were having this dialogue. And I looked at the dialogue and I went, that is directly out of a scene from, you know, the original show. And I went, oh, I get it. And then they want to hear whether our voices sound like. So I went into, and I don't usually do this, but I went into a professional sound studio with an engineer that I know, and I literally downloaded those segments of the scripts, and I voice matched myself from 30 years ago because I wanted an extra set of ears to go, you know, and because it's been, you know, 30 years. So I did that, and so I don't know. I don't know why I'm not Jean again. I know that Jennifer Hale played her, you know, for a season in Wolverine and the X-Men. And she actually knew the new showrunner, and I did not, never met the guy. So although he was, you know, constantly telling me that I was his Jean Grey and showing me his Phoenix tattoo, and I'm like, dude, that's nice. In fact, one of the records, the engineer who worked on the original show 30 years ago in the same studio, walked me out. It was one of the last records I did with him before he got fired. And he was going on about some article he'd done in entertainment where he talked about me and delivering like the message of 97 as Val Cooper in that monologue. And I was like, uh-huh. And as we walked out, the engineer turned to me and he said, well, that was weird. And I said, right? So it's not my imagination. And he went, no, if he loves you so much as Jean Grey, why didn't he give you the part back? And I'm like, I don't know. So somebody didn't want me to be Jean Grey. I don't know who, I don't know why. And at first, I'll be honest with you, I was devastated. And I didn't realize how much she meant to me and how much I identified with playing Jean until that happened. And so that was 5 years ago. So it's taken so fucking long to get this series out. It's been 5 years. So I'm kind of over it. And I kind of enjoyed Val Cooper because she, to me, she kind of reflects humans' view of the mutants and how and everyone thinks, oh, she changes her mind all the time. But in fact, humans change their attitude towards the mutants depending on what's going on. Yeah. So I kind of enjoyed that about that. But yeah, I mean, Jean is in my blood and in my bones. So and my I'm in 76 episodes and it's right up there on Disney Plus still. So I feel very connected to Jean even still.
Let's make some noise for that response.
Oh,
God Queen.
honest, right? I mean, people want to, and people are curious. I'd be curious too. Like, why did some of you know? And they told Chris Potter that he didn't want to be Gambit again. He was like, I don't. No, because we're killing Gambit off. And he tells this story. He's told it, and I keep thinking like the Disney drone is going to come in through the ceiling and take me out. So if you see a little red dot in my chest, just let me know, okay?
She will rise again, though.
Can't keep a good phoenix down. But yeah, Chris says, they said, oh, you don't want to be Gambit. We're killing Gambit off. And he was like, oh, okay. Sure, I'll be Cable. And then, look what's happened. So.
Well, it's a testament that you and Chris, in this example, took new roles and made them instantly iconic, because Val's iconic line is
Magneto was right. Yeah, no, I know. And the very first line they had me say is Val in that very first record, she's on the treadmill, and they had the word Scott in there. She's talking to Cyclops. And I said, you really don't want me to be saying Scott, in my first line, like I'm trying desperately not to sound like Jean. And they were very cavalier about it. I was like, because normally you go to a voice job, and I hadn't auditioned for Val Cooper. So especially when you go in for a job you haven't auditioned for, I come in with like 5 or 6 different versions of, like try this, and lower, breathier, higher, whatever. I just did one. They were like, oh yeah, okay. I'm like, really? You make us go through all this and then you have like nothing to say to me, but okay, all right. I'll just try not to sound like Jean. So yeah, I kind of purposely try to get her lower and breathier.
Did you voice the Phoenix Force? Was that you?
The Phoenix Force?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so you did Jean and the Phoenix Force.
Yeah, so the green uniform is me, the green outfit. However, okay, so this is also weird. So I started doing the red Phoenix, the dark Phoenix. And the producers decided that because they were going to have the Dark Phoenix do so many awful things, that they didn't actually want her to be associated with Jean. They wanted to be an entirely different entity.
There we go.
So they hired an actress who played Mystique in the original, Jennifer Dale, not Jennifer Hale, Jennifer Dale. So she played the Dark Phoenix. But because there are moments when, Jean kind of fades in and out from the Dark Phoenix, and so they were constantly bringing the wrong actress in. So he would bring me in and I'd look at it and go, yeah, guys, this is Jennifer. This is the Dark Phoenix. And they were like, oh, can you do an impression of Jennifer? I was like, I'd known Jennifer for years. I'd done one of my first movies with her. And I was like, okay, she has a fighting civil and death. But she's really sweet. And anyway, so I would do it was weird because she was kind of doing an impression of me in a way. And so I was doing an impression of her, doing an impression of me. And
because I remember being confused as a child with the voices going back and forth. And I thought it was you, and it was never.
Told me that there were actually times when they used my voice as the Red Phoenix. There are not that many.
Yeah.
But there are times because they brought us the wrong people in.
Oh, I got you.
So there's one of those little mistakes that, Larry knows where they're all buried. So yeah, there are times when the red uniform, it's Jean's voice coming out, but there are times when it's Jennifer Dale. It's confusing. I spend a lot of my time, I figure at cons going, yeah, no, I didn't voice that. Yeah, that's not me. No, I'm not doing that again.
Okay, well, you know what the follow-up question to this is going to be.
What?
Did you voice Dazzler? Because everyone thinks you voiced Dazzler.
How often did Dazzler appear in the X-Men?
I mean, in the background for one, but speaking one.
I mean, in those Capcom, the Marvel vs. Capcom video games, I did they were too cheap to hire more than one actress. And when you hire an actor for a role, and then you give them a second role, you only have to pay 50% for the second role. So they were saving money. So they had me do Jean, Jill, Phoenix, Psylocke, Storm. Allison Celia Smith, still can't get over that. But I didn't know her then. She was not doing Storm at that point. She didn't come in until after the first year. And I don't know whether Dazzler appears in those or not. I don't know.
She doesn't. But
who's credited? If you look at IMDb.
You.
Oh.
Queen, God Queen, you are.
I guess it was me.
No, but we don't know though. We don't know.
Baby after I had a baby in 1993, and then I was doing a series at Shot Nights, a vampire show, and I would stay up all night Thursday night working, and then go home, get my baby, go to the studio for 10 o'clock Friday morning. I don't have a lot of memory of those like 3 years. So if it was me, then it's me.
Well, it's unconfirmed, but you
You
mentioned
should listen to it. Do you have the episode?
I can. Yeah, it's Dark Phoenix Inner Circle.
Oh, so this is the Dark Phoenix
Yeah,
saga. Okay.
it's at the beginning of the Dark Phoenix saga.
Okay.
So, well, you would have recorded a song called Body Heat. Thank you.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
If it was you, but I asked the Leewalds, and the Leewalds are like, we're going to consult our notes. That's true.
Did she only sing in the episode, or did she speak as well?
Well, here's the thing. She had like a little side thing with Scott.
Oh my God.
I know.
I don't remember that.
Oh, you're right. Who hasn't had something with Scott? Raise your hand if you've hooked up with Scott Summers. Yeah.
You know, I look at my IMDb page, and there's some things on there that I believe, but I cannot remember. So I would have to go back. I'll listen to the walls next time I see them, but I'll go back and listen.
Okay. So you mentioned having your son then.
Yeah.
Your son would eventually show you a little collage on YouTube about Jean Grey. Do you want to tell the story?
Yeah, my son couldn't wait to show me that compilation video of Gene fainting. And I was saying to Paul earlier that, you know, you sort of trust the people on the other side of the glass to tell you, to give you direction, right? Go, oh, do it again. This sounds sort of like this or whatever. And people always treat it like it was somehow my choice that Gene fainted all the time. It's right there in the script. So, but nobody in 5 years, you think someone would have said, Catherine, yes, your fainting noises sound vaguely sexual. And nobody said a word. So I take no responsibility for that. But my son, yes, he couldn't wait to show me that.
So you were recording that first season with like all 8 of you in the same booth, right?
So it was just the first season, but I remember it went into the second season
It
as
went in
well.
the second season?
Yeah, and then it was just people's schedules. It was too hard to get. And frankly, my God, one episode took like 9 or 10 hours. And then someone, you know, no names, I won't mention names, but somebody would like, a couple of people would go to dinner and then just not come back.
Yeah.
Have to be like pried out of the bar down the street. So no, I won't. But yeah, and so it took a long time. And when you're standing there, like, because you're all in a row, there's like, and you know what? I got pregnant and I had to ask people, they let us smoke in the studio, in the room. I had to ask people not to smoke because that's how long ago.
Oh my God. I know. I remember smoking sections at restaurants.
Oh yeah, or in the plane. Remember you're in a plane?
And I used to think it was so glamorous. I was like, I can't wait to grow up and sit in the smoking section of the Cheesecake Factory.
You have such big dreams. Yeah, no, that was so 8 of us. What was great about that is that you heard the world you were in. So you heard what everybody else was doing, but it's not like a spontaneous thing. If Cyclops is standing next to me, he says his line, and then you have to wait like 1 mosquito, 2 mosquito, 3 mosquito for the engineer to switch mics. Otherwise, you get feedback. So they only have 1 mic on at a time. So it's this laborious process when you're doing it as a group record, where you might go through a whole scene. Everybody does a pass. And then you all sit down and they all listen to the pass in there and you chat and whatever. And then they come back and go, okay, we're gonna do that again, another whole pass. Great, you sit down, you do it again. And then they'll say, okay, now we're gonna do pickups. And they will go through and pick up certain actors for certain lines. And I must say I was very often the one that didn't have to do any pickups.
Dang right. Make some noise for God Queen there.
So, but what that meant was you still have to sit around and be quiet while everybody else has to do their pickup. So it took hours. And there is something to be said for being able to walk into a cartoon, you know, and get your little voice and sing your little song. And then when your comfy shoes and no makeup, 45 minutes later and go home. So on the other hand, what I do love is when I start a new cartoon, I totally love it when they do like a group record for the first couple of episodes. Because again, you hear the world you're in, but as to it just got too it's exhausting to do them,
Well, you said something that was really interesting in a past interview, that when you auditioned for X-Men, you thought it was just another cartoon because you already had a background in doing kids' cartoons.
Yeah.
But the X-Men actually was more adult. When was that moment that you're reading the script, like with like Dark Phoenix? Or you're like, wow, this is like a powerful story? What was that aha moment?
Well, we only saw, like I said, when we auditioned, we only saw these monologues, but even the monologues were more adult. And I got that it was aimed at like 8 to 12-year-olds, but that they were aiming above their heads. So people were absorbing as kids lessons that they didn't even know they were absorbing about how to treat other people and what it felt like and all that stuff. So I knew right away when I read those scripts that they were nothing like, they were so unlike any of the other kids' cartoons going on. And George Buza, who grew up with the comics, he's the only one of us who read the script and went, this is the X-Men, because they were, they had a fake name for it. So, because it's all this, even back then, Marvel was like really
Hyper secretive.
Oh yeah, my God, the NDA. That's what I mean about the Disney drone coming through and it's been so long, I'm never sure what we're allowed to say and what we're not allowed to say anymore.
Well, I was going to ask you about season 2 of 97. Just what can you tease that's not going to get you in trouble, that the Disney drone isn't going to come and get you?
I don't know. I mean, I think I'm allowed to say, because they already announced there was a season 3.
Yeah,
So we've actually finished recording season 3.
All right. Hey.
Joke that, I'll leave a record and go, yeah, I wish I'd done something else in that line. I said, that's okay. When we re-record this episode, because we re-record the episodes like 2 or 3 times. And they did a bunch of rewrites on season 2 because the original showrunner, as we all know, left. And when the new showrunner came in, they did some rewrites. And so that probably is what sort of elongated the whole process. But I'm not sure, like visually, I can't even say visuals because they haven't released anything. And
they have not.
No, and they are I actually got an email about a week and a half ago from Marvel saying, okay, look, because they know we go to conventions and stuff. When you go to conventions and people ask you, there's a lot of misinformation out there about when it's going to be released, season 2. Don't believe anything until it's officially released. And I gather they have an official, the Tribeca.
And Tribeca in like June something.
Yeah. And I would imagine they'd be crazy not to have a presence at Comic-Con in San Diego as well.
Agree.
Yeah.
Agree. All right. Final question before we kick it to the audience. One second. What did you think of the X-Men movies and Jean's portrayal in them?
Oh, God.
Bring the tea, God Queen.
There's some great, like Famke Janssen, beautiful woman, great actress. But to me, Jean is like this corn-fed, all-American girl. And I can hear, like Famke Janssen where's she from, the Netherlands or something? And I can hear the accent. I always thought, I've never really been on board with anybody that they've had play Jean or the Phoenix. But, to me, Bryce Dallas Howard would be such a great Jean. She's got that empathy. She's a natural redhead. She's got that vulnerability, but that kind of strength to her and that empathy, So I thought she'd be great.
I love that. Thank you. All right, we're going to open up to questions in the audience, and starting us off, Doom.
Yes. Oh, he was incredibly funny. He was one of those guys, and he was a really good-looking guy, but he was very self-deprecating. And he had this like natural announcer's voice that he just had. And I think his whole life, he felt like he didn't deserve that it wasn't a talent, that it was just like a God-given voice that he'd been given. And so I think that's where his self-deprecating humor came from. But this is really funny. I was doing this vampire show called Forever Night at the time that we were shooting at nights. So Norm came on, and I played the coroner, and he was in one scene, but by the time I got there, he'd been killed and he was a corpse. So they had him on a gurney in a body bag, and the scene started with like a close-up of a hand zipping it over, the body bag closed over Norm's face. I know, a bit macabre considering that he's dead, and they zipped him up, and then the gurney would leave, and then the camera would pan, and I was doing a scene with the guy, the lead of the show. So Norm, he was behaved himself as long as he was on camera, but as soon as they zipped him into that bag, he started this monologue in the bag. It was like, oh yeah, great. First job I've had in a year and a half. Oh no, don't worry about me. Bag's bigger than my apartment, you know. I laughed so hard, and they had to keep doing it because there was like a gurney and extras, and so they had to keep getting it right. And every time I had to have my makeup redone. I was like, and nobody could hear him but Gary and I, the lead, because we were standing right next to the body bag. So he was incredibly funny. He would have loved going to cons, he really would have. And he was so naturally talented that I think he discounted it. But so funny. Like, he could make fun of that announcer voice. He could do those sort of funny announcer gigs because, anyway, he knew how to make fun of himself. He was lovely.
Let's make some noise for him.
Yeah. Norm.
Do you have another one? Follow up to?
What was it like working with him?
Never worked with him. He did, as I said earlier, he did phone in a couple of times, but they would always mute the phone call because usually I think he was yelling at them for something. So I never actually met him, never worked with him.
Yeah. Yes, Wanda.
Interesting question. So the question was, as a voice actor, what aspects of the character influence the voice that you pick? And everyone used to tease me because you wear these big headphones, right? When you're in the booth. And when there were 8 of us, and for some reason, I always held on to my headphones. She's a telepath, right? So it's so I would be like, Professor, and everyone would go, oh God, there she goes again. And so it was her sense of constant, not worry, but it was this empathy, this sense that she was taking on everybody else's worry and everybody else and her concern and her love for Scott and for Logan. And so that really kind of shapes it, and that was sort of urgent. There's like this urgency to her, this concern in her voice all the time. And she had like some girlish moments, kind of flirty, girlish moments. I rewatched the show during the pandemic, and because I'd never actually seen it all the way through. And so 2 weird things happened. One is that I had this intense craving for Captain Crunch the entire time. And then I realized that I remembered that when my son was young, I would let him have Captain Crunch once a week and we would watch the X-Men. And so I sat there through 76 episodes with my mouth I was like, I cannot order Captain Crunch during the pandemic. I'm sitting like 5 feet from my pantry. I cannot do that for 76 episodes. But, and the other day, they also had the episodes out of order at first, which really pissed me off. I thought, wait a minute, am I crazy or no?
It threw us all off as kids.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, what's the question? I forget what the question was.
The Wanda.
Oh, yeah. Oh, so when I rewatched it, I was shocked at how often they kissed. It was like Cyclops and Jean. It was like, really? I don't remember that much. Is that okay?
No, they were very lovey.
They were very lovey-dovey. It's true.
Logan's background.
I know. Those are some of my favorite scenes. I always I'm Team Cyclops, I have to say, but don't tell Cal that because, he calls me Jeannie. We go to cons and he plays like the theme music really loudly for hours. And I love that music, but it feels like something's going to happen, And after 8 hours of that, I'm so anxious. I have to go, just turn it off. Yeah.
A quick question, sidebar question. So when you were in those recording sessions together as a team, who was like the silliest, like the one that you had so much fun recording with? And I'm sure it's everyone, but one person in particular.
Well, I did a lot with Norm. Norm was very funny. But the interesting thing was all the guys were really competitive. So, for instance, when there is a secondary character like a judge or a reporter or whatever, they'll go, okay, so just try it. Everybody do their take. And so all these guys, and they like to do impressions. They were all wanted to get their Jack Nicholson impression in, And so they were always kind of razzing each other and competing for these secondary roles because you make like 50% more in it. So watching them do that was pretty funny. And I don't know. I mean, I'm usually pretty funny, but I don't remember how funny I was back then. But
I'm sure you were hysterical.
hysterical. Always. I mean, that's why I work a lot in cartoons, because cartoons actually like you to be funny, not the X-Men, but other cartoons. Yeah, so the boys were all really competitive. I do remember that. Alison Seeley Smith, never met her till I went to a con in 2020. Oh God, late 2022, like my first con ever.
Are you serious?
No, because she was not initially Storm.
Wow.
They hired, they hired, after, me saying how inappropriate it was for me to audition for Storm, they actually hired an actress named Nikki Guadagni, who's a very talented theater actress, but she's white. And so she recorded that whole first season, and she went that September. Nobody told her. She turned it on for the premiere with her kids watching it and heard the voice and realized that's not my voice. So they somehow, during that, after the postseason, they realized, hey, this was probably not a very smart choice. It's one of the few Black X-Men, and we've hired this white actress to play her. So they recast it with an American, and then I think they kept her voice for maybe one episode, Ilona Morris.
One season, and then I think they went back and re-recorded
and they revoiced it. So Allison didn't come on until season 2, and she went back and revoiced season 1. But she was at Stratford, which is our Shakespeare festival, about 2.5 hours from Toronto. So she never made it she wasn't in our group records for the first 2 years. And then she would just come in and record when she could, because she was always doing theater. So I never met her. Now she's like a great friend. We're really good buds. She's my con buddy.
Stop, like Dean and Storm in the comics. Absolutely.
I know. So so that was, I never met her.
Okay.
And they actually replaced Professor X. That was another actor who played him for like the first half of the first season, I want to say. And then they replaced him with, actually, I was the person that I was living with, who's the father of my son. Who's still alive, but he's like in his 80s. Well, he's like 20 years older than I am. So he was in his 80s. He's in his 80s. But the X-Men 97 producers have a funny story, because when they came back, they were reaching out to all the original actors. They apparently, he's retired, but they apparently found his phone number. And they phoned him and left him a message and saying, hey, we're rebooting the show, and would you be interested, and all that stuff. But he is notorious for never listening to his messages or returning phone calls. And apparently so they didn't hear from him, and they just went ahead and, recast. And then about 1.5 years later, I'm not kidding, they got a message from him going, yes, I got your message. And yes, I would be interested in that. And they were like, oh, he said, so I kept it because it was like Professor X on my answering machine. But yeah, so.
Please drop that voicemail.
I know, he always sounded a bit like James Mason. He was like, so I'm blabbing. Now I'm just babbling.
Questions for Catherine? Everyone's like, yes, we just love hearing her voice. I have a question. Oh yeah, Richard, come on, Beast. Come. Hank McCoy, come here.
Hank. Yes. Ready what? Yes, sorry. Well, like I said, okay, she does exhibit a bit more diversification in her wardrobe in season 2, thank God. I mean, I love the red suit, but really? You can tell Val means business when she's got a ponytail.
She's not messing around.
Not messing around. I mean, that monologue in that first season, I felt like I had the best line in the entire first season of 97, and that whole monologue. And I get what Bo was trying to say to me about, that sort of the thesis of that monologue for him was the thesis of the whole show. Again, she reflects humans' views of the mutants. And so I found that interesting. And I know there's lots of speculation about what's going on with her and other characters. So,
Wow, you like read my mind. Like I
Yeah.
was literally that. You saw the wheels turning in my head.
can't say anything about that. Stay tuned. Yeah, I mean, I've enjoyed it. I mean, I literally, I'm in a studio by myself, the same studio that we recorded the original one in 30 years ago. However, until recently, until about 6 months ago, and then they tore the building down. But I'm in a studio with all of the voice director and all the producers on Zoom on a big screen in front of me. And I keep my camera off because nobody needs to see me do voices, is my theory about it. And at first they were like, well, really need to see you to see if you're close to the mic. And I said, you can tell. This is voice work. You don't need to see me making faces.
You're like, I got it.
Yeah, I'm like, it's okay. So I see them, but they can't see me. But it is a bit lonely.
Do you have a different process when prepping for Val than you did with Gene?
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, I feel like I knew Gene. I knew who Gene was. I felt like Gene. Val has been a bit different because she's sort of, she's bureaucratic and I have to pay more attention to the detail of the plot and stuff. And honestly, now they're throwing so many mutants in. They're trying to cram so much into 97 each episode. I get a script and I have to have Wikipedia up in front of me because all these mutants I've never heard of, and I'm like, well,
She does. She does. And back when you did the original recording, you had the long red hair too.
no, I had long, yeah, I looked more like Jean back then, and Jill. I don't anymore. But yeah, and it's harder. It's harder because I felt like because Jean was so emotionally intense and so involved, and Val is not. My favorite moment though in 97, the first season, it's when Val comes in and Magneto, that magnificent beast of Magneto, is up against the wall in chains, essentially in a Speedo.
Oh,
I gather he wanted him to be completely naked and they wouldn't let him. One of the reasons Bo is no longer with the show. Decisions like that, I think. Anyway, but what I love about that, because 97 can be so frantic with so much going on, but there's that moment when Val comes in and sees him and he raises his head slowly, and there's like 5 seconds of silence with like the sound of water dripping. It's very Miyazaki, and that is such an impactful moment. And nothing is said. And then Val apologizes and said, I didn't know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. But that moment, I love that moment visually and the soundscape that they've made and the silence.
I mean, with that monologue, that entire sequence, I mean, you could feel the levity in the episode.
Yeah, the gravity.
The gravity, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. Like levity, like the opposite.
Like sprung up in the ceiling. But yeah, I mean, but that moment with Magneto afterwards, that's the one that I really just as he raises his head. Oh yeah, it's something else to say. I can't remember what it is. Never mind. It'll come to me.
One of the things that I loved so much were the Mutant Academy games, and you returned as Jean for them. Do you remember the experience for that? I know video games, it's like really quick. You go in and
those were the ones that were Activision, right?
Yeah.
So there was Mutant Academy 1, Mutant Academy 2.
Yeah.
And then after that, Activision ended up getting the live action actors in to do, for the most part, I think, to do those video games. I don't remember much about those. I remember the Capcom ones very clearly. What
was that like?
Well, that was interesting because they wanted the original voice actors to do the parts. So they came from Japan and then they stuck around, right? We did Resident Evil. They did a whole bunch we did like 16 video games with them over the course of the next 5 years.
Dang.
Not me. I did like Resident Evil and all the fighting games. And Alison Court, who was Jubilee, did Claire and RE2, and she was in Code Veronica. She ended up directing some of them. And then there was Mega Man and Devil May Cry and, so many of them. So, and Dino Crisis, that we did a whole bunch. So I remember them because there were like 4 Japanese engineers with their translator, with their laptops out, as well as all the other people in the room. And every time with Jill, I was in there for like 3.5 weeks all by myself. They would just bring other actors in. They would be like, they'd be all like this, waiting for me to say a line. I'd say a line. all get on their laptops and start typing. And I was totally paranoid. I was like, what are they typing? What? And then they turn to their translator and have this whole conversation. And the translator would just turn and go, faster. And I go, really? You sure that they didn't say anything else? Okay, all right. But yeah, I mean, the fighting games were pretty basic in terms of they only had a few phrases. I think Psylocke said, Psyblast or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they were fun. And
Which I used to spam attack my cousins with that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They just re-released all those games in 2024 as the arcade classics.
Yeah. Is everyone playing them? You're playing them? Yeah, make some noise for those games. Those are great games.
They're very nostalgic.
More questions for Catherine. Over there.
The monologues, the diary entries. I love those. There are more of them that they didn't use. Somewhere in a disc is a whole bunch more diary entries. But that was a unique experience because, like I said, I was in there for 3.5 weeks, and they just kept bringing people in for, like, Carlos would come in for a couple of days, and but yeah, that was more like that was a fully formed character, and the video games I'd done before had not been like that. So I sort of felt like, I felt like that about X-Men. They were really fully formed. Okay, so I was at a con with Larry Houston, and we were the only two there. Usually there were like 10 of us or something, but Larry and I were doing this panel, and I said, we're gonna have to be like 3 times as entertaining because there's only 2 of us. So I came up with a question for Larry, and I made up an X-Men joke. So for Larry, it's funny if you've worked at Marvel. So my question was, what would be the collective noun for a group of X-Men? Like a clouder of cats, a school of fish, a murder of crows. And he went, oh, I'll have to think about that. And then I said, okay, you want to hear my joke? It's really funny if you work at Marvel. How many X-Men does it take to screw in a light bulb? I can't tell you. I signed an NDA.
Yes.
Larry laughed. It was grim. And then about 10 minutes later, the moderator of the panel went, oh, I have the answer to your question. He said the collective noun for a group of X-Men would be a family of X-Men. And Larry teared up. He almost cried. And here's the interesting thing. Larry Houston got to pick which mutants were featured in the original cartoon. So he picked that initial group. And because the live action guy, the first live action director, knew nothing about X-Men or the comic books, he only watched the original cartoon. That's why he just took that same group, that same family group of X-Men, and they carried on through all the live action. So you can thank Larry Houston for that. Now, in X-Men 97, there are mutants that I have never heard of. I literally have Wikipedia, and I look up the name, and it's clear that nobody else knows who they are either, because they'll say, you so-and-so's stepbrother of so-and-so. Like, nobody knows who they are. And I flip to the end, and if they die, I don't bother learning about them. My brain cannot, so.
But, Larry, who was the series director for the original X-Men animated series, he used to sneak in designs. In, like, No Name Mutant, he'd actually put, like, Dazzler in an early episode. So that way, when it came time to feature Dazzler, the designs were already made, and he would just repurpose them. I mean, brilliant. I mean,
he'd worked for Marvel for a long time. He knew how to work the system there, and he was a really groundbreaking artist there. He was brilliant at that. And the Lawalds, the original writers, knew nothing about the X-Men, but they were good writers. So between the two of them, Larry taught them about the X-Men, and they just did their writing thing.
More questions for Catherine? We have time for about 2 more. 2 more questions. Did you ever read the original Dark Phoenix saga? Like, do you know the original ending for Jean versus how it ended in the anime?
I know somebody's told me this before.
So she dies at the end of the original Dark Phoenix saga, and in the animated version, she's brought back to life instantly. Was there ever a moment where they were like, Jean could perish at the end, or was it always a plan to bring her back?
It's gone for a while there. So Larry also said that he had not planned for Jean to be a major character in the show.
Yeah.
They just hadn't planned for it. And what they realized is, as they were writing it, is that she's the one that everybody talks to. So she became more and more integral to the stories and to the show. And then he knew he was going to do the Phoenix Saga.
Well, that's why she also had the ponytail, because she needed to be the girl next door that everyone came to
Yes.
for problems and stuff like
And
that.
everybody had a crush on.
One of my favorite aspects of the Dark Phoenix saga that you all did was that in some scenes, Jean actually has green eyes, which in the series she had blue.
Yeah.
And Larry told us it was because to signify that was like the real Jean in that moment.
Yes. So, yeah, but they didn't always get it right. So it can be confusing if you're looking for that. And Larry admits
Some of us are like glued to the screen. What colors are Jean Grey's eyeballs?
I can pause this now and really look at it. Yeah, Larry, he's funny because you ask him, he'll point out these moments that total mistakes, like a sign that's backwards or just like a blip where it's just like an X that goes by so quickly, most people don't even notice it, where they were supposed to put something in and they forgot. So yeah, he's got a lot of mistakes like that.
So, Catherine, what's coming down the pipeline? We know 97 season 2 is coming. Anything else? Any projects that you want to discuss?
I still do. I mean, we're still doing Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood after, I don't know, 9 years. A lot of animation has, right.
We got a fan right there.
A lot of animation has died down a bit. It's been a very bad couple of years for animation. Warner Brothers Kids and Warner Brothers Discovery were big producers of animation, and they're kind of, as we all know, not doing it. They wrote down all their projects. So I told that I work a lot for Hallmark. So I wrote a Christmas movie with my son.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, and we sold it and shot it last year. Then I had to be in it, and then people rewrote it, and anyway, then I had to say, and yeah, I had to be in it. Is
it out now or is it coming out?
No, it's not out yet.
Okay.
I've done like 5 movies from them over the last 2 years, but I did a show called The Good Witch for them for like 14 years. So
We love The Good Witch.
you're actually doing another Good Witch movie this year.
Yeah!
That's that. So I do a lot of Hallmarky stuff, and I'm writing now, which I wasn't before. And my son is a writer, and he's an incredible taskmaster. So he makes me. He'll be downstairs going, "What are you doing?" When I'm supposed to be like working on an outline, I go, "Oh, just thinking." He's like, "I can hear you watching Grey's Anatomy on your computer. I'm doing research." And he's like, "Just do it." He's one of those guys that, people go, "Oh, I have a great idea for a movie," and they never write it down. He's got an outline. He's written 3 feature film scripts. He's written, he's really going at it. And so yeah, he's my taskmaster.
What's
the
his
point
name?
where I vow. Oh, he has it. His name is Darcy Smith.
All right, Darcy.
Yeah, so yeah, he's my taskmaster. To the point where, I don't know, sometimes I feel like we shouldn't work together because, we're living in the same house, and it can get, there's no privacy. "What are you doing? Have you written this?" "No, leave me alone." Because I'm one of those people that I write in my head because I'm an actor, and then I do it all in my head, the entire thing, and I have a really good memory, so I memorize it in my head, I do it, and then I just barf it out on paper.
Wait, what are you writing? Are you writing like movie scripts? Or are you writing like
Pitching more rom-com kind of
yeah.
movies to Hallmark.
Good.
But
I love a rom-com.
But I have some other sort of more Canadian, because I'm Canadian, more Canadian limited series ideas. Although, it's sort of international appeal. My son's a big horror guy.
Oh, are you a horror person?
No, I can't read his script.
What did you say, Gambit?
I know, I can't do it. I just have bad dreams.
Can we get a round of applause for Catherine? You're going to be here for the afternoon, signing at your table right over there.
Blown away by the costumes and the cosplay here. It's just amazing. And it just adds, it's like such an incredible energy. So totally blown away. I'm particularly in awe of anybody who is blue, because I always think, yes, trying to get that off later. I'm totally with you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all so much.